So that shiny new game just came out, Manor Lords, and you want to know if it's worth your time, right? Well, let's take a look at the game for some first impressions. Keep in mind this is not a full review, this is a quick look at the game. I played the game for around 9 hours, so I'll show some footage of the game while describing it and giving a few thoughts on it. I played this game for so long before this video because I kept starving my people and making them leave. It took me a while to sort of get a feel for the game and how to do things. I probably started like 5 different games, each one lasting around 2-ish hours, and it wasn't until the last game that I started doing somewhat well-ish. I would have played longer on my last game, but my game actually crashed, so I just called it there. Surprisingly, the performance was really good throughout the game. I had no issues whatsoever except that one crash at the very end, and it stutters a little bit when it autosaves. I'm still very surprised how the performance was though. It was so smooth, and usually these types of games are horribly unoptimized, but you could tell this one was well made. But let's move on to the actual game now. Once you press new game, you have a very small amount of customization to do here. You pick a pre-made portrait, add your name, and then you customize your coat of arms. And then it's the game setup. You could select relaxing, default, or challenging and just move on, or you can customize some individual settings. I played default for like my first 3 games, and then I started customizing my last 2 to try to make it easier. My win condition I played each game was dominance, which is to eliminate all the other lords to win, lords being the AI opponents. There were 2 other win conditions as well. Conquest, take all the regions to win, and then growth, which is to reach large town settlement to win. Every game I started off with a few tents and 5 settlers. There's a lot of information on the top of the screen, such as how many people are living in your settlement, how much gold you have, how many families your settlement can hold, your approval rating, supplies you have, and more. On the bottom there's a few things down there as well, but the most used would be the road symbol, which is to connect buildings to roads, the hammer symbol for constructing buildings assuming you have the required supplies and people to work, and then the cross sword symbol, which is where you create your army. Up top again, if you click the name of your region above the banner, it'll pull up the development tab. You also have policies here and production. A lot of stuff here is either locked or not there at all, and that's because this game is early access. When I click production, there's nothing there at all, and policies only has a couple unlocked that you can actually use. Development is a little more open. I think it's once you build 5 houses you'll get a development point. Development points are big and can drastically change how you play. I just kind of picked randomly the first few times, but as I played several games, I went back and read each description and I was like, oh man, I could have used that. On my very last game, I used a development that makes all trade routes 25 gold, which was helpful because also on my last game, I decided to go almost fully into the trading aspect. Usually the routes vary in price from like 20 to 500, so that was pretty big. Resources in this game are highly limited, and every game I tried to farm so that I could collect wheat, and then make grain, and then flour, and then finally bread to eat. However, this never worked for me, as my people kept starving and leaving. There's a few ways to get food here. You could farm, trade, and then there's a couple things on the map that you can collect. Berries and hunting animals. However, berries are seasonal only and also run out, and hunting also runs out. So on my last game, I did 2 things. I focused on trading for food, and then I used a policy to double the animal regeneration rate so that I could hunt more often without it running empty. The other policy was for the people to skip every 5th meal, and crops have like 50% less yield. I feel like that policy kinda sucks. So that, paired with lower trade route prices in the development tab, is going good for me so far. My people have yet to run out of food, and I'm getting a decent income of gold to keep buying more food. In order to do this strategy though, you're going to want to find a resource to sell over and over. For me, I bought sheep. I take their wool and then make it into yarn. I then sell the yarn for gold. With that gold, I can buy more food or other things like horses or more trade routes. However, if you sell too much of one item, it'll flood the market and bring the prices down. So the end goal would be to probably sell several types of products. Now let's talk about your army. Not only do you need a higher population for a bigger army, but you'll also need the equipment that they'll actually use. Spears, shields, and so on. However, those cost gold, and gold is hard to come by. I think the most I had at one time throughout my 5 games is like 2 squads of 30. However, the AIs always filled like 4 or 5 squads of 36 people. So you can see how this could be pretty difficult. Luckily, you can hire mercenaries, but they cost your own personal treasury that you unlock when you build the manor. You build up your treasury from taxing people, but if you tax too much, then your approval rating is going to go down, so you got to balance a lot of things there. In my later games, that's exactly what I did though. I started hiring mercenaries instead, and it won me a few battles. The amount of men I actually had were measly in comparison at that point. In this game, you can also switch to third person, but again, this is early access, so there are many issues. You cannot interact with anything at all, and all you can do is walk or run around. Enemies won't attack you either, and you can walk through almost all things. It's neat though to see everything that you built on a ground level and seeing battles up close. You can also pause and speed up time, which I do very often. Oh, and there's seasons, which affect the harvest, or your citizens could freeze, and then the firewood usage also goes up in the winter. There's a lot to this game that you need to keep track of, or you'll be in heaps of trouble. I'm not super used to like city building types of games, but I really enjoyed this one. I recommend this game to anyone interested at all. It's very fun, though that's my personal opinion. Whether or not this is your type of game, I'll see you on the next one.